Hello guys, today's topic is Cold War, which is grade 12 history topic. So guys, as I always say in my videos, if you are new, just know that you can listen to this video. There's no need for you to watch the screen. And this video is made for those who do not have a textbook, or for those who do not prefer to read, who do not like to read, who prefer to listen. So it will work out for you. So today's topic is Cold War. I'm just going to be explaining the Cold War. Specifically, I'm going to explain the Cold War. I've already done the Vietnam War and Vietnam War essay. You can check it out in the description. If you want it, you can check it out in the description. So yeah, definition of the concept Cold War. What was it? It is a state of military rivalry and political tensions. What methods were used? Espionage, propaganda backing up allies in conflict, e.g. Middle East, Europe, and the Far East Africa. Who was primarily involved? The two superpowers, the USA and the USSR, and their respective allies. When did it occur? 1945 to 1989. Accepted as the official date, but some consider the start to be 1917, when the Russian Revolution led to the establishment of the Soviet Union or Soviet state, and that it ended when the Soviet Union collapsed and Germany was reunited. Where did it happen? It began in Europe and spread to other parts of the world. Why did it happen? There were many long-term and short-term causes. Causes of the Cold War. Guys, this is also important. It's very important that you know the causes of the Cold War, so that you might write your essay to be good. You need to know the causes of the Cold War. This is very important, guys. World War II itself. It's World War II itself. The rift widened between the USA and the USSR. Stalin encroached in Eastern Europe during the last months of the war, and the Red Army reached Berlin fast. Poland was occupied by the USSR, and Germany was split into 4 zones of occupation, as the Allies could not reach consensus. Nuclear weapons deepened the suspicion of rivalry. It led to an arms race and development of deadly weapons of destruction. 2 spheres of influence were established in Europe, and as communist regimes were established in the occupied states. These were termed satellite states. Rivalry ideologies. Communism versus capitalism led to increased suspicion. Leadership rivalry. Truman was a hardliner who did not want to concede to Stalin and despised communism. How did it happen? It was not a hot conflict between the superpowers or direct, open conventional warfare, but it operated through proxy wars and liberalization struggles where vulnerable states were manipulated to further ideologies and to extend the sphere of influence of the two superpowers. What was Truman's policy of containment? What was Truman's policy of containment? It was Truman's policy after 1946 to use specific strategies to prevent the spread of communism. It consisted of 2 components: the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan or European Recovery Plan. The Truman Doctrine. You're gonna start there, guys. I'm gonna start there and explain the Truman Doctrine. Crisis in Greece, 1946. In March 1947, Truman announced that the US would assist Greece against the communists. Military and financial aid change in US foreign policy. European Recovery Plan, which is the Marshall Plan. In June 1947, Marshall announced the European Recovery Plan to contain the communism in Europe. Aid was offered to any European state for industrial and economic recovery. This will eradicate poverty and economic distress, would prevent the spread of communism. The USSR prevented the satellite states from accepting Marshall aid and formed the Communist Information Bureau of Cominform to counter the US policy of containment. The Berlin Crisis, 1948-1961. So guys, I need you guys to look at the screen currently. I need you guys to actually look at the screen now. I won't put the table or the list here, but I've written it for you guys in the screen. 1946, the three western zones in Berlin united to West Berlin. 1948, currency reform was introduced in West Germany to uplift the economy. Stalin wanted the West to withdraw from West Berlin and hand over their zones to the USSR. Currency reform in Berlin led to an improvement of economy, and defectors left for West Berlin. Stalin blockaded the access routes to West Berlin. The West did not want to risk outright war with the USSR and introduced an airlift. For 11 months, Western aircraft airlifted essential food, medical, and fuel supplies to West Berlin. In August 1949, Stalin lifted the blockade and reopened the roads. West Germany became known as the German Federal Republic, while East Germany became known as the German Democratic Republic. Standard of living low in GDR led to migration to West Berlin and strikes. Revolts crushed by authorities. Leader of GDR, Walter Ulbricht, closed the, I'm sorry guys if I'm not pronouncing the word right, I'm sorry, closed the border between East and West Berlin in August 1961, and soldiers erected a wall, guard towers, and armed guards to stop defectors. The Berlin Wall. After the Berlin crisis, two powerful military alliances were formed that effectively divided Europe into two armed camps by 1955. NATO was formed in 1949 by 12 countries that agreed to unite the armed forces of allies in case of a nuclear threat or attack from the east. After West Germany joined NATO in 1955, the USSR and its allies formed a second powerful military bloc called the Warsaw Pact. Significance: the spheres were entrenched into two defense parts, and arms race began to build between the superpowers. Containment and brinkmanship: the Cuban crisis. Another tactic developed during the Cold War was brinkmanship. This is a practice of pushing dangerous events to edge or brick or disaster in order to gain an advantage. Posturing and discrediting the opponent was used to portray the enemy in a negative light. These strategies were applied during the events in Cuba that led to the extension of the Cold War beyond Europe. Background to the crisis: until 1959, US commercial farmers and businessmen had interest in Cuba. It was a poor country, dependent on US sugar imports. The US turned a blind eye to the brutality of the Cuban dictator Batista. In 1959, Castro led a revolution and overthrew Batista's regime. Castro announced plans to nationalize land in Cuba and indicates that he needed loans from the USA. The US refused to lend money to Castro as he was viewed to be Marxist. The US threatened to cut sugar imports from Cuba. Cuba turned to USSR and signed a trade agreement with Russia. In retaliation to US trade cuts, Cuba nationalized all American-owned companies. The CIA assisted a group of exiles with planning a counter-revolution against Castro's government. This invasion was a disaster and an embarrassment for Kennedy's administration. Castro asked for weapons from the USSR to defend itself against USA, and he declared himself a Marxist. The US viewed Cuba as another Soviet satellite state. In June 1962, Cuba received shipments of arms and MiG-21 fighter jets from the USSR. Medium-range missiles and bombers arrived. The Cuban Missile Crisis 1962. On
14 October 1962, an American spy plane detected a nuclear missile base on the island. Kennedy set up a special committee to advise him on the way forward. On 22 October, Kennedy announced a blockade of Iceland, which placed the island under quarantine until the missile sites were removed. Sorry guys, I cannot pronounce this word properly. It's a Russian word. Khrushchev defended the Soviet actions as an act of self-defense on Cuba's side due to the role of USA in the Bay of Pigs disaster. Khrushchev accused the US of piracy and did not turn the warships around that were en route to Cuba. Letters were exchanged between the two leaders and the world waited anxiously to see what would happen. Khrushchev offered to dismantle the Soviet nuclear missiles bases in Cuba in return for a dismantling of US missiles bases in Turkey. The crisis was averted by means of diplomacy. Once the crisis was averted, there was a thaw in the Cold War. A hotline telephone link was set up between Moscow and Washington as a direct line of contact. In August 1963, a nuclear test ban treaty was signed to end the nuclear testing above ground. In 1968, a nuclear non-proliferation treaty was signed, which aimed at preventing the spread of nuclear weapons to the countries that did not have them. So guys, this is it. As I've said, I'm just going to stick to the Cold War specifically. So the reason I'm not going to speak about the extension of a Cold War case study, China, I'll speak about it on part 2. Actually, I'll speak about it on part 2. I didn't want to make this video to be long. I'll speak about it on part 2. So guys, make sure you subscribe for part 2 if I haven't released one. If I released one, I will just put it on the description. You will check it out there. But I haven't released one, so I'll put it on the part 2. So guys, make sure you subscribe, like the video, share the video, subscribe guys. And I didn't add the essay again because I've already done the essay, but on part 2 maybe I will add the essay. I'll put on the essay. So guys, make sure you subscribe, like the video, share the video. Peace.